おお、見事にゃ。たるんだやつはキルンが鍛える。
Hello, I'm Silveroxus, and the unit coming this week to Octopath Traveler COTC is the mighty Kate Hunter himself, Kilns. And he's ready to educate you kittens on how to play the game better. So Kilns is a hunter. His main role is that he is a tank, arguably the tank in some cases, a bow DPS, and a massive support unit as well. His special abilities is that he can auto-taunt enemies just by existing, no pets or equipment or skills required, he just taunts them with his passive. His preferred weapons would be Fortune Bows for P attack if you're using his 5-hit bow, or Brilliant Bows with high damage cap for his 2-hit nuke, if you're bringing him for damage, that is. Preferred accessories would be high HP defense up gear for tanking, P attack and damage cap gear if you are DPSing with him. Buff and debuff extension accessories for support options are great as well. He has a lot of accessories that he can use depending on the situation that just make him a very versatile unit. So for his passive skills, his first passive is that while he is in the front row, he grants the front row 15% physical attack, critical, and bow damage up. So this is great because while he's just up there tanking, he's also passively buffing all your other damage dealers as well. Notably, this only buffs physical attack, not magic attack. For his other passive, is while in front row, he auto-provokes all foes, and also does an AoE 10% physical attack and magic attack down. Passive attack down is actually a very rare buff. Debuff, I mean, because every bit of damage mitigation matters because it all stacks, linearly. And so being able to get passive attack down by just existing is great for surviving early turns and super hard fights as well. It's very, very imperative because the only other way, there isn't really any other source of passive magic attack down. It's only Signa A4 for 5% passive magic attack down, and then also she's in the back row for another 5%. Otherwise, for physical attack down, all that exists is Signa for the same reason with her and her A4, and also hardly A4 only at the start of battle. So just Kilns having this on at all times is really good. His TP passive is, it's serviceable. It's basically just helps him be a better tank. Every time he takes damage, he recovers 20% of the damage taken as HP, and 5% of the damage taken as SP. The SP part of that passive is really better than the HP part because since he's always going to be in the front row because he's probably tanking, that little bit of SP regen can help him not run out. So moving on to his skills, for his base kit, he has a 1-hit AoE bow, a single ally other than himself he can buff with 15% physical attack, magic attack up, and also grant them priority on their next turn. He has an AoE 15% physical defense and magic defense down debuff on all enemies that also reveals weaknesses if they haven't already been revealed. He has a 3-hit random target bow with a medium, about 50% chance to inflict 15% bow res down for 2 turns per hit. This is basically kind of like that Scholar skill for 3-hit random target for debuffing resistance, except this one does have a medium chance instead of being guaranteed, but statistically it'll get at least 1 proc per use. Then he also has a self 20% physical defense, magic defense up, plus physical magical counter. This is basically like other units, other tank-like units' taunt skill, but instead of taunting, he gives himself a counter, so he gives himself defense up and he counters. And every time he gets hit, he counters with a 1-hit bow that also debuffs physical attack and magic attack for 2 turns. So that just makes him an even better tank because he's just debuffing their attack, which means more damage mitigation. This was a skill that was buffed. It didn't used to come with the physical defense, magic defense up, so he's just giving himself even more damage mitigation now, so that's really, really good. He has a 2-hit AoE bow that always reduces shields regardless of weaknesses, so that's very niche, but it is something that if he's tanking, he can technically shave a little bit of shields no matter what if you really want. For 4-star skills, he has a 3-hit single target bow that exploits lightning weakness, and it inflicts, and get this, 7 things, 7 debuffs in one skill. It inflicts 15% physical attack, magic attack, physical defense, magic defense, critical, speed, and bow res down for 2 turns by 15%. And at 6-star, it becomes 3 turns. And if you have enough like a debuff extension accessory on, 4 turns. 7 debuffs, 1 skill. And if you combine this with that 3-hit random target, he can self-cap bow res down. Although there's a lot of other units that can do that, but this is the skill that he's going to always have on, because 7 debuffs in 1 skill is insanely good. It's also really, really good in some builds where units need icons, because this is placing 7 icons down in 1 skill too. Keep that in mind. So for his 5-star skills, he has a 5-hit AoE bow that exploits lightning weakness. This is his highest multi-hit. This was buffed from a 4 to 5 hit in global. It does so. You know, you will need if you want to use this as like a DPS move, you will need to beef him up pretty strong, but it can be serviceable enough. And then I would say for his best nuke option, probably would be his 2-hit single target bow that exploits lightning weakness. And its power is doubled versus broken foes, so 2 times stronger. And this can be like Solon and boosted as well, but it probably wouldn't be necessary. This is it where if you're fighting something that's like weak to bow, but you're also like or lightning, and he's there just the tank, you can bring this along if you have the open skill slot to let him do respectable damage without needing super max buffs, because he can probably damage cap. It's also good, like I said, you could bring a brilliant bow to give him damage cap as well. His TP skill is a front row BP regen, which is just really, really good. It's expensive in SP, but being able to give your entire front row active BP regen, which would also stack with Alana EX if you want to use her for even more BP, while also tanking, is extremely valuable. Moving on to his EX skill and his ultimate technique. His EX skill has 3 total uses, and it's unlocked as long as he has 50% HP or higher, so you could use it right away from turn 1. It is a priority 5-hit single target bow, but the attack count becomes 10 if the target has 5 or more shield points. So because of that, as you can see, that it is clearly meant to be a shield shaving skill. I do not recommend Kilns ever be your breaker, especially if you have Ochet or Canary. Both of them do a far better job breaking. Ochet especially for using bow teams. But this is a great thing that you can throw out, that if you don't need to like buff up his defense, or even after you do that, if they have a bunch of shields, you can just throw out a 10-hit shield shave on against targets weak to bow. His ultimate technique is a support class ultimate. It takes 3 BP to charge at ultimate level 10. It is called Kate Hunter's Command, and this ultimate was also buffed for the global version, as it now affects all allies instead of just the front row. And it heals all allies and grants 10% physical attack, magic attack, critical and bow damage up for 2 turns. It scales to 20% buffs at ultimate level 10 with a 3-turn duration. That makes it an unbelievably good ultimate, and I would highly recommend using any dupes you get on ultimate 10 first before even going for his A4. And also, this is far in the future, but when ultimate 20 technique level 20 comes out in the far future, this scales up to 30% buff potency, which is just immaculately amazing, especially because it hits all allies. Really good ultimate. Moving on to his Awakenings and A4 accessory. So when he is DPSing, A1 is great to have for anyone, and it is a very minor help for tanking extra hits from the extra defense. While tanking, normally defense stats don't matter a super large amount, but every little bit helps if you're the one soaking up all the hits. A2, Kilns actually has a lot of amazing skills, so he actually really does want A2, so that way he can take a lot of his good skills and have more options for support. It's just really, really good. For A3, HP is always good, as he is a face tank, so he wants HP even more. And then so his A4 accessory is called the Kate Hunter's Turban, and it gives a whopping 800 HP with 60 P attack, which is really, really good for the HP. The P attack's fine, but it's mainly just because the HP is really, really good. Its abilities is that it gives itself 15% physical defense, magic defense up, which makes that HP go even farther because just having permanent passive defense up is great for survivability. And then it also gives itself 15% bow damage up, so that would self-cap his own bow damage up. But like in the future, when like Huge Up comes out and you're running into bow comps, this accessory for the bow damage up won't matter. But for overall, this A4 rating is honestly an A tier A4. HP is great for any unit, and if you combine this with the permanent defense up, it's just very good for keeping any DPS unit you want alive while giving them HP and some P attack as well. Bow damage up, like I said, doesn't really matter, but if you combine this with the row partner unit wearing Hammy A4, for example, and Kilns would have capped passive defense up for massive damage mitigation as a tank or anybody else for that matter. And that way your tank doesn't have to equip, like, even though there are 3 other options to get defense up as well, this is just a more potent way to do it with fewer accessories. This A4 is not game-changing, but it is the best A4 in its niche for tanks. I would not drop everything to chase it on release or anything like that, but if Kilns is your main tank, it's potentially worth exchanging for in the future, as it does get a lot of use. But either way, it's still very, very good. So moving on to an optimal skill layout, I would say that you want to take itself 20% defense up and bow counter the debuffs attack. This is a must-have for tanking, since he's going to be tanking unless you disable that passive. I would take his 3-hit single target bow that debuffs everything. 7 debuffs in one move, like I said, that's insane. For skill 3, I would take either his 5-hit AoE bow or his 2-hit single target bow for nuking / shield shape, depending on the fight. Because the nuke is great because he doesn't need max buffs to do a lot of damage, and is very potent, so you could use brilliant weapons for that. Or you can take the 5-hit, which is weaker, but if he's main DPS, then you can buff that up to be very, very good, and or just have that for good shield shaving as well. Both also exploit lightning, so it can be useful in slightly more comps in terms of damage besides just bow. And then for skill 4, because this is also why he would want A2, you always want to have his front row BP regen. Being able to tank and give the front row BP is just extraordinarily good for roll compression. For unit synergy, he is really good right now with Ochette, because excellent in both teams that she's the breaker and can cap active bow res down with Kilns, so he doesn't need to try to take both his bow res skills. Signa for Signa things, because she's going to handle the ultimate debuffs, and can also cap like bow res down if you want with her as well instead of someone else. Hers won't stack with Kilns, but it's not hard to time it right to have them both be active when you need them for break anyway. Canary in non-bow teams, she's the best breaker and can cap all his debuffs besides bow res, so that's also very useful. So if you're like using them to tank in other builds, Canary can be the breaker and just help out really, really great. Solon for ultimate potency up if Kilns is your main DPS, always useful. The back row partner can actually be an auto regen unit or someone wearing defense-giving equipment for him as well. So, like, since he's going to be staying in the front row forever as well, if you're trying to go like a really tanky build, you can actually have like Ren be behind him to give him SP, and then Ren can either be in defense mode for even more damage mitigation, or potentially just in perma attack mode, since he's just going to sit in the front row all the time tanking hits anyway. So that's an option as well. You could also hide Alana EX behind him as well, potentially. But Kilns can work in almost any composition as the tank role. Also in the future, he synergizes extraordinarily well with Huge Up, so you're going to want to like combine them both together for massive bow power teams. So whether you should pull or not to pull for Kilns plus what I'd rate him, overall Kilns is the tank for a very long time. Even when Cecil releases eventually, Kilns has still better things over him. Cecil does have some things over him, but I'll cover that when Cecil releases in the future. But Kilns' ability to auto-taunt and passively debuff enemies and selfless own defense, heal when attacked, heal SP when attacked, and also provide massive support with his all debuff skill and his top tier ultimate technique. Kilns is just an extremely well-designed complete package that's not overtuned, but just extremely valuable. I will say that he is not a waste of rubies. If you decide to go for him, you will be happy, but you also don't need him, but he's in a very good pickup. But as always, if you love a unit, regardless of pull advice, do whatever you like, although he is quite good. So tier 4, free to play, consider it. It should depend on your ruby count. You want to make sure you have enough rubies for the super high power meta units coming up in the future, mainly near replicant and eventually parties and Black Knight in the far future, as well as, you know, Tiziano as well after near replicant to enable Kane. So like you just kind of have to base it on where you're at in the game and how many rubies you have. But I'd say if you have like at least 10 to 15,000 rubies, you could consider it. This is also where if you have a good amount of rubies, you could also consider doing a past biddy here. This is a great place to pick up a previous MT if you're missing one that you really want as well, because that way you're statistically likely to probably hit 2 kilns on the way to 6k, 200 pulls, so you probably should be able to get him old 10. But it's a great place to get it, as he can work in any comp. For tier 3 low spender passes, I'd say it's worth grabbing at least 1 or 2 for old 10. Great usage. You can skip for ruby if you're really low in rubies, as Cecil in the far future is free and very solid to tank with. But we are getting another Traveler's Rest stop, which is a nice little splurge of rubies. So if you're a low spender, you're probably buying that. So that could be some Kilns pulls right there. Consider it. So if you're tier 2 like a Dolphin, you want to A1 old 10 him like at least. Pushing for A3, A4 is even better. Honestly, you should probably try to go for A2 as a Dolphin, because you're gonna need that skill slot for using. But you can also just wait to exchange for stones as well. And if you're a whale, just A4 full 10. Just A4 old 10, full set, get it done. Great unit. Won't be disappointed. So for an overall rating of him, for his DPS, I'd rate him as like an A-. It's because he's just lacking multi-hits. He has good damage, but he's not the best to take as your main DPS. Support, he's S+ support, so really good options. He does have some healing with his ultimate techniques. I read that as a C because it is an all allies burst heal, so it can be somewhat potentially useful, but not super impactful. For tank SS tier, one of the best top 2 tanks in the game, free, not in a contest. So his overall tier rating, I'd say, is he's S+ tier. He's really good. I can't put him in SS must pull. You have to have this unit tier, but he's almost as good as it gets for a unit that's not hard required by meta. Like you won't regret it. You'll have a lot of fun using him, and there's a lot of comps he can be useful for as well. And so if you're not doing 100% like pure everything dies instantly meta later in the game, he's just fun. I don't know what else to say. I've had him for a while in global, and I use him a lot, and I can't wait to get him 6-star and use him even more, because he's just gonna get even better. But otherwise, let me know if you decided to pull for Kilns below, or if I already had him, and please let me know if there's anything else you guys would like to see. Otherwise, I will see you all in the next video, and please like, follow, and subscribe for more COTC content, and have a wonderful rest of your day.